Kursk update. While Russians push forward in attempt to get Pokrovsk, world media outlets are actively hyping on the topic. Russian Tsar walks Genghis Khan Square in Mongolia safely. Ultra-right winning or not so much in Germany. Two experts in our studio interview on UATV English. These topics, as usual, in more details in this very episode with me, Henry Keane, and our team at UATV English, bringing hard truth in easy terms for the whole free world directly from Ukraine. Is Kursk in Russia worth it if Ukraine can lose a key transportation hub of Pokrovsk? World media outlets are letting out what they call analytics, and I call just hyping. BBC analyzing things in Kursk and asking what is it worth it. The two daring journalists are Tom Bennett from BBC News reporting from London and Ilya Abishev from BBC Russian reporting from Europe, my native Riga. These daredevils, heavily armed with their notebooks and egos, managed to find a Ukrainian expert addressed to Ukrainian MP Mariana Bezukha. The trenches in front of Novokhodivka, that's a city near Pokrovsk, were empty. There was practically no Ukrainian army in the once 20,000-strong city, Bezukha writes on Facebook. When the BBC does stories like Ukrainian man in war zone raises funds with art to squeeze a tear out of her eyes, that laptop writing may be enough. But when it comes to war analytics, I don't know about you, but I'm craving more. If I do military analysis the way the BBC does, right from the laptop, and I just open Mariana Bezukha's Facebook, I'll see quite a tendency to know things. When Mariana Bezukha went to Kharkiv, she said there weren't enough trenches. And that was the reason why Russians advanced so fast there. But Russians actually never succeeded in the end. Then Mariana changes the topic and blames Ukrainian army commander Sodol, the one once under charges, led by one of Azov commanders against him. Bezukha joins the Azov commander and openly blames Sodol, and all the charges later were dropped by court ruling. Well, Bezukha then comments on the Ukrainian F-16 down recently, claiming it was a friendly fire. No any confirmation from armed forces of Ukraine follows on that. So in easy terms, Mariana Bezukha is known in Ukraine for having a loud and alarmist voice. That does not mean she tells lies, no. But somehow all her allegations tend to end not in the way she alarmed us against. It is even somewhat good for Ukraine as it misinforms the enemy, but not only the enemy gets misinformed. Friends of Ukraine in the West just as well are. Ukrainians advance in Kursk, that is the fact. And some well-known pubs recently alarmed everyone who has brains that Ukraine is losing more military equipment when advancing than when not. Well, thanks, Captain Obvious. Well, don't get me wrong. I like pubs like The Economist, Forbes and BBC, and their analytics is fine when the matter that they analyze indeed exists. When it is a fact, and they dissect it mercilessly in order to find out, was it worth it? But now, what is it known for sure about Kursk? Nothing. What does Forbes know about it? Nothing. BBC? Nothing. What does Mariana Bezukha know? Nothing. What does any expert on the face of the earth know at this point of time and space unless he or she is not sitting in the General Staff of Armed Forces of Ukraine and actually commanding the Kursk operation? Nothing. And so nothing is to analyze yet. Was Kursk worth it, and what happens to Pokrovsk we all see when we see it. Not a minute earlier. And so all the Forbes', BBC's, Bezukhlas and other media mouthpieces alarming the world with their fancy analytics articles should, just as banks, write that counterfeit across banking notes to avoid forging. This media analytics should also have just one word written across it: speculation. Not that I expected the Mongolia Special Force to arrest Russian Tsar Putin, no. Mongolia, a sparsely populated country between Russia and China, is heavily dependent on the former for fuel and electricity, on the latter for investment in its mining industry. It was under Moscow's sway during the Soviet era, and ever since the Soviet collapse in 1991, it has sought to keep friendly relations with both the Kremlin and Beijing. But you only imagine Mongolia actually dared to arrest Putin. Well, they did have detained Russians before, you know. All of them. Inside Russia, actually. Just Google it. Genghis Khan and the history of Russia, Tatar-Mongol yoke. These guys actually annexed more than just one Russian Tsar. Once they held all of Russia for 300 years. So why not become famous again, even if only for 3 weeks, and call it a Tatar-Mongol joke later on? But they didn't, and Putin came in and out safely. Mongolia has blanked all calls for it to arrest the Russian leader on the international ICC warrant. An honor guard welcomed Putin in the Mongolian capital Ulaanbaatar as he arrived to meet the country's leader Ukhna Khorolevsk. Mongolia is a member of the International Criminal Court, ICC, that issued an arrest warrant for Vladimir Putin last year over war crimes in Ukraine, including the deportation of children to Russia. However, Putin still received a very warm welcome anyway. The capital's central Genghis Khan Square was decked out with huge Mongolian and Russian flags for his first visit to the neighboring country in 5 years. Everything was how dictators love it. Armed men on horsebacks, little girls with flowers, many flowers, talks, smiley faces, and etc., etc. What exactly they talked about? Well, a new world order, of course. Soviet Russia is back on top, and Mongolia is its true companion and gets oil and electricity for that. By the way, Genghis Khan was exactly that Mongol Tsar, Khan, who once annexed all of Russia for 300 years. And now ICC indicted KGB dwarf Putin is walking the Genghis Khan Square in his capital. I love the parallel. So what about the Rome Statute anyway? What about neglecting international law and order? I'm not talking about Putin now, actually. A thug is a thug, after all. I'm talking about Mongolia. What do they say?
President Putin is a fugitive from justice. Any trip to an ICC member state that does not end in arrest will encourage President Putin's current course of action and must be seen as a part of strategic effort to undermine the ICC's work. Altantuya Badorsh, Executive Director of Amnesty International Mongolia.
You know, I understand Mongolia, actually. I really do. How is it when you have no choice and your people deeply depend on Russia and its oil and electricity? And when someone from the United Nations dares to say, you should have arrested him, Mongolia, I would like to ask a question in return. Where have you been, guys, when Russia presided over you in the UN Security Council? Horrific news came just recently. Biggest one-hit death and wounded toll since the beginning of Russian full-scale criminal invasion of Ukraine. On the second day after all educational processes restarted in Ukraine, Putin sends a deadly gift. Russian missile hits educational institution in Poltava.
Dear
Ukrainians, I received preliminary reports regarding the Russian strike on Poltava. According to the information available now, 2 ballistic missiles hit the territory of an educational institution and a neighboring hospital. One of the buildings of the Communications Institute was partially destroyed. People were trapped under the rubble. Many were rescued. More than 180 people were injured. Unfortunately, many people were killed. As of now, 41 people have been reported dead. My condolences to all the families and loved ones. I have ordered a full and prompt investigation into all the circumstances of what happened. All necessary services are involved in the rescue operation. I am grateful to everyone who has been helping people and saving lives since the first minutes after the hit. The Russian scum will undoubtedly be held accountable for this strike. And once again, we urge everyone in the world who has the power to stop this terror. Air defense systems and missiles are needed in Ukraine, not in a warehouse somewhere. Long-range strikes that can defend against Russian terror are needed now, not sometime later. Every day of delay unfortunately means more lives lost. Eternal memory to all whose lives have been taken by Russia.
The one who has eyes sees what and who Ukrainians are actually fighting against. No comments rather than those. Ultra-rights in Germany are gaining power. Is that really so? And what's to expect? Interview on UATV English. Good afternoon, UATV is online and on the air. Well, let's have a little talk show, if you will. Tonight, two experts, and me and our beloved audience, of course. Our guests next to me, Maxim Yali. Hello.
Hello.
International relations expert, and on the line, Andreas Umland, political researcher, analyst at the Stockholm Center for Eastern European Studies. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello again.
Hello again. Right.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, sure. Well, we don't have other choices. I mean, we don't understand what's going on. I mean, when we say ultra-rights, when we say Alternative für Deutschland, we are thinking Putin, right? Who's going to answer this question? Let's start with you, Mr. Umland.
Well, the Alternative for Germany started out as a libertarian party against bureaucracy, against the European Union, against the euro currency, and then over the years became a far-right party and is now partly right-wing extremist. The head of the Thuringian subsection in eastern Germany is perhaps a fascist. His name is Björn Höcke. And unfortunately, this, in particularly this Thuringian subsection of the Alternative for Germany won the elections of 2 days ago in Thuringia. And so we have now, they're the strongest party with a fascist leader. It would be perhaps wrong to say that the whole Alternative for Germany is a fascist party, but this Thuringian section in southeast Germany is certainly rather extreme. I know it well because I'm myself of that region in East Germany.
Well, my question was, thank you very much for that detailed information. But Maxim, we are talking for Alternative for Germany, Alternative for Germany. Is that a Putin's party, actually? More or less?
Well, actually, we can't say. You know, in Ukraine, we usually, when any party, any politician in Europe, all around the world, sympathizes or just to Putin, we think like it's a spy, taking into account Putin's, past, etc., etc. Especially if it concerns Germany, right? Where he worked, a KGB officer, especially in the eastern Germany, as Andres mentioned. But I don't think so. That's completely that it has connection and gives Kremlin, financial assistance. Yes, it's true, and there are a lot of information. Besides, some of these experts, for example, even who worked on Russia TV, I know personally, and some of them even come from Ukraine. So usually, Putin, Kremlin, and all special services, yes, and actually it's a tradition of Soviet special services, KGB especially, yes, to finance, to give assistance, to support those parties, politicians who follow their national interests. And of course, obvious that national interest of Russia, of Kremlin, in terms of Russian-Ukrainian war, to split the support, the unity, or in this concrete case of German society, and they support those parties which stand for regaining relationships with Russia, just as Alternative for Germany does for many years, actually.
But I mean, how likely do you gentlemen think that Alternative for Germany is going to win? Because they're going to have to return their debts to Putin. Now in Ukraine, and we all in Ukraine, and we really want to know how likely AfD is going to get to power. What do you think, Ms. Tolman?
The AfD has become very popular in Eastern Germany, and in the last sort of nationwide elections, which were the elections this summer for the European Parliament, this AfD, Alternative für Deutschland, Alternative for Germany, won in East Germany, and that has a lot to do with the specifics of East Germany, its history, and also its political culture, I would even say with its demography. But East Germany is only a small part of Germany, so it's about a fifth of the population. And even this good result that this party has had now in these European parliamentary elections and in the regional elections in Saxony and in Thuringia, and will probably also have in the Brandenburg elections, another regional election this month, this does not yet translate into a very strong faction in the federal parliament, the Bundestag. Next year, September, there will be Bundestag elections, federal parliamentary elections, and most probably the AfD will increase its share of seats. It has now already a faction in the Bundestag, but it will remain a stigmatized and isolated force in the Bundestag and will not enter government.
So stigmatized, just one half of a question, stigmatized because of their ties to Putin, or stigmatized because they are almost openly fascist?
Both. I mean, you know, fascist is perhaps too strong a word.
Okay.
Some of the leaders are fascist. And as I said, it started out as a libertarian party. The Putin support is there, and there has been also some evidence and some scandals around that. But it would be wrong to assume that this party is a Russian project, or that the party owes its rise to this Russian support. I think there's much more suspicion that the Russian support was important for Trump's win in the 2016 US presidential elections, because there, I think maybe the Russians made the difference. But in Germany, this support that this party has gotten from Russia, and there is some evidence for such support, is perhaps not so important.
Okay.
And it may even be for some or for many Germans a liability of this party now that the reputation of Putin and of Russia in general has gone down.
Okay, thank you very much for answering. Now, the question to Maxim, as a PR specialist, would tell me, especially who is a professional in PR, AfD are populists, right?
Yeah,
So
definitely.
how to counter them? Are there any ways to counter them, or just to become more populist than they are?
Well, how can I say? You see, just what does mean the term populism? Yeah,
Right.
it's just the beliefs and those politicians who are who do not have their own program of the party. For
Right.
example, like Republicans, Democrats, yeah, or just conservatives, laborists in Great Britain. There are traditional ways towards homeland security, just foreign policy, etc., etc. So they have groups, traditional voters, etc., etc. But populist, and actually it's a trend, and it concerns not only Germany, but it taken place throughout the Europe and throughout the world, actually.
Right, well,
Andres mentioned Donald Trump. Yeah, he's not traditional Republican. He is populist. So those politicians who feel the moods, dissatisfactions with the situation of the people, the majority of people. Yeah. So using and making their slogans and gain the popularity. For example, we may just Farage, yeah, in Great Britain, Brexit, also not traditional, untraditional party. So in Italy, so in every country now, this trend for at least the last decade is taking place and very popular. So non-traditional parties, non-traditional politicians come to power. Well, Ukraine is the best actual example, So President Zelensky, has never been a politician, but a very famous actor, comedian, and he he became the president. Just half a year before the presidential elections, nobody thought he could, and that's actually the best examples of this trend. So, they are definitely populist.
Yeah, well, they're definitely populist. The question was how to counter them. How do we fight with this enormous populism? With what? With what instrument? Are there any tools in PR, in international PR?
Well, just in tools in PR, PR and political technologies are closely connected, and actually these are the synonyms, marketing, we can say. Right. So politics has become show business. It's like the same.
Right.
And the same rules, play the most important role. And how those people I mentioned become elected. So there is it's a trend. It's a postmodern, it's about philosophy already. You ask such a question, so definitely it's a trend and we cannot face. So if you look back like 50, 60, 100 years ago, to the United States, even women didn't have right to vote. And it was a matter of elites, I would say, people who paid taxes. So now massive politicians and everybody is involved. Everybody has a voting right. And the problem is that the masses are now so well educated, and they're easily manipulated, their opinion, and that's actually the trend which is taking place.
Well, that was always, let me say that I believe that this is always was the case with masses that are not quite well educated. So if we go back to Rome, I believe the times never, just the tools changed. The time and the tools and the internet actually show how poorly
social media, etc.
Social media.
Andreas mentioned how Trump won in 2016. It was just big data, etc. So
some comedians made their way to a president. Some made their way back from president to a comedian in a dark and very unpleasant way for the world and for themselves. I believe I'm talking about Vladimir Putin, of course, and his dictatorship. But Mr. Ullman, the question to you, so what's next from Germany? So you're absolutely sure that it doesn't translate into anything bad? It's just a sign of AfD gaining power, but there could be next steps, there could be more, and there will be more probably.
Yes, it is certainly a worrying sign, and it's not just about these two lands or regions that had just these regional elections, but it's basically a problem for the whole of East Germany, and that you have their anti-systemic parties that not only the AfD, but also the Union of Sarah Wagenknecht, that are rejecting the liberal democratic system, the Western integration of Germany, NATO, even partly the European project, and that are also rejecting the German help for Ukraine. So this is indeed a very sad development. And I guess the main problem in East Germany, I myself from East Germany, is that we did not have what in West Germany is called Vergangenheitsbewältigung, the coming to terms with the past, with the Nazi past, and also with the past of the de facto Soviet occupation during the time of the so-called German Democratic Republic. And this has not been yet sufficiently reflected upon, and that's why now we have this sort of right-wing extremist party or neo-Stalinist party, you could argue, that of Sarah Wagenknecht becoming popular, and people find that unproblematic to vote for these parties. That's not because they are Stalinists or fascists, but they want to express their protest, and they have or many people have no problems with voting for such parties that are anti-systemic.
Right. So, in terms of Sarah Wagenknecht, I believe Maxim has a lot to say because you said that the Sarah Wagenknecht and the Bündnis für Deutschland or Bündnis for Sarah Wagenknecht, or your newly baked party, she's ultra left. You said.
Yeah, she is actually. Well, as I understood, Andreas mentioned her Stalinist. Yeah, he went even farther, but definitely ultra left, and actually that's how it works. When you started our discussion here concerning Putin, yeah.
Right.
So both, as we can see, it's not just like pro-Putin parties, etc. So absolutely different, ultra-right and ultra-left. But what is in common, they stand against sanctions against Russia, yeah, cooperation, etc. And actually, Andres mentioned here, it's about rather psychology. So it's a kind of protest. So people with supporting totally different programs.
As a protest.
Yeah, I mean, right and left, yeah,
Yeah,
alternatives,
sure.
total alternatives, yeah. So they vote. It's a kind of protest against governance, existing governance, and traditional parties as well. Following my ideas I mentioned before, yeah, just it's a crisis of traditional parties all around the world, particularly in Germany, because they fail to fix and to answer the challenges in economy, globalization, migration, and actually it's all about not only about supporting Russia, yeah, and sanction, but also anti-migration
Right.
slogans, both support, and also there is difference between Western Germany and Eastern Germany, because Eastern Germany didn't have such a long history of migration. When since the end of Second World War, a lot of migrants came since 1950s, yes, to Germany, Western Germany, yeah.
Right.
So there was no such tendencies in Eastern, and of course, these fears are easily manipulated by the leaders of these populist parties, and as we can see, unfortunately, they have results.
Well, one thing I haven't still here. Ich habe nicht gehört hier in unserer gemütlichen Studio. How do we fight them? What do we do about it? If they're not only unsystematic, as you say, Mr. Humlen, but they actually are parasites, if you ask me. So are there any way? Maxim said there is no way, other than just become more populist than they are. Maybe any ways to counter them and to win.
Unfortunately, we only have the argument, and we can research them, and we can provide the information, and we have to spread the information about them. So there is, very little we cannot start a counter propaganda campaign. We cannot engage ourselves in this sort of populist discourse. Although we have to point out all the contradictions of these parties. So the Union of Sarah Wagenknecht presents itself as a party for peace, and is against delivering weaponry to Ukraine, and think that will bring peace to Europe if Germany stops delivering weapons to Ukraine. And we have to show and deliver arguments why this is untrue, and how this is destructive. There's a lot of demagoguery there, a lot of play with simple ideas, and we have to explain why these simple ideas are actually misleading. They would be bad for Germany, actually. So I mean, one thing I usually say is in the German context, well, if you stop delivering weapons to Ukraine, you should then get ready to have millions and millions of Ukrainian refugees in Germany. If you like that idea, then please stop delivering weapons. But if you don't want to have millions of Ukrainian refugees, then it's better to give Ukrainians the weapons to defend themselves.
Well, what can I say? You know, the only way looks for us, if you agree, Maxim, is that exposing demagoguery and exposing their weakness and contradictions in populists, whether they are left or right, is the only way. We cannot fight the dragon in the way the dragon fights us, and to become a dragon. That's what I believe. This is the resume of today's small talk show. But maybe you have a questions to each other, or maybe you're interested in that. Do you have any question to me or to Mr. Umland, maybe, or vice versa?
Well, I know Andres for many years. I just
Oh, is that so?
well, yeah. Once, 10 years ago, I worked in OSCE mission, yeah, and I brought just some observers to him. He was given his
Right.
expertise, so I read him, and no further
See,
questions.
you guys are
He's-
just good friends and never tell me about that. So
No,
I'm just cool.
Not a
cool.
good friends, but we know each other because small world, and besides, experts world is pretty small.
Small world and three people discussing it here at UATV English. Thank you so very much, Mr. Alman, for your expertise. Max, thank you so very much for
Welcome.
walking the distance to our studio. Thank you and goodbye. And that was again UATV online and on the air. Maxim Yali and our dear friend and his friend Andreas Umland, political researcher from the Stockholm Center for Eastern European Studies. Thank you so very much and stay tuned on UATV English. That was it for tonight. It was me, Henry Keane, for UATV English, breaking hard and, like today, sometimes horrific news for you in easy terms. Please like, share, comment. Your voice matters indeed, as it helps Ukrainian voice to be heard globally. In turn, stay safe, stay with Ukraine during our righteous war against dictatorship, and goodbye.